Welcome to the Love Up Life podcast. I'm your host, Scottie Hobbs, where we are here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, help you feel better, and learn how to make more income for your family. I'm here with my good friend and mentor, Nate DeTracy. Nate is a husband, father, and entrepreneur who has built multiple seven-figure businesses in direct sales. A former professional bodybuilder, gym owner, trainer, and nutritionist, Nate also spent years as a church planter, blending discipline, leadership, and purpose into every chapter of his life. Today, he shares practical insights on building habits, cultivating mindset, and creating success in any venture. Nate, welcome to the show. I'm here with my friend Nate. I'm super excited about this conversation. Nate is someone that I really look up to and admire in the type of work that I've been doing for the past 15 years. In our lives, we need to look for and find mentors and people who've gone where we want to go. So Nate is one of those people for me. So I'm excited to be here with you, Nate. I'm going to ask you just like, who is Nate DeTracy and what do you do?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, I guess. I mean, first, a child of God. I'm definitely a believer. I'm a husband. I have two children. Well, I shouldn't say children. They're 23 and 25. So two adults, young adults, and just recently moved to Arizona. I've been in the direct sales channel since 2007. And prior to that, I was a professional bodybuilder, gym owner, and supplement store owner. So kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So your kids they are grown up. I think we'll always call them our kids though, right?
No kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So tell me a little bit, I just want to dig in a little bit to bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to get into bodybuilding? Like how old were you? What inspired you to get into that?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, I don't know, probably seventh or eighth grade. For some reason, my mom used to bring home used magazines that she would get from her friends at work, and they were bodybuilding magazines. And I would flip through them, and I was like, these guys are like superheroes. Like, I want to be like that. And so my lifting career, I guess, if you say, like my love for that, like started way back then. I used to make collages of different bodybuilders and that type of thing. And my mom would get up early before work, and she would actually bring me sometimes to the gym, and sometimes she would bring me we had this little portable in our junior high, and I would go there early, turn on the heat, and I would get somebody, whether it was a teacher or one of the coaches, to come in there and lift with me. And that just kind of, I mean, it was straight out of a Rocky movie. I mean, you had to wear gloves in the morning because it was freezing cold. You could see your breath, but I loved it. And I think just being a small guy, was in high school, I was 5'5". So at that point I was probably 5 foot, but just a little guy, but I had a big heart, and I wanted to do something, and I wanted to succeed in sports. That's kind of where my identity was at the time. And so I had to do something to separate myself at that point.
I love that. How cool is it that your mom inspired you and helped you with that?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess to go deeper on that story itself, my parents ended up passing away when I was 23 in a car accident. And so I really leaned on bodybuilding after that. Prior to that, I loved to lift, but I was going through a rough period in my life where I was kind of falling into drugs and alcohol, and just didn't know how to deal with not having a lot of good mentorship around me, didn't know how to deal with that pain. And so I saw this guy totally transform. And at this point, I hadn't really pursued bodybuilding, but asked him what he was doing. He said a bodybuilding show. And so I said, I want to do that. And so I looked for somebody to help me with my nutrition, and I just dove into that. And really from about 2001, because my parents passed away 4 days before 9/11. So that was a whole different experience for me than most people, because as everybody else is freaking out, I'm like hoping that the world's going to end. Like, I just didn't know how to deal with that pain. And so, bodybuilding kind of was at that point really my savior, and gave me something to really focus on and make it through that rough time.
Man, wow, what a beautiful way to turn a hardship and a tragedy. And I mean, because someone could go through something tragic like that, the losing of your parents or a child or whatever tragedy might come into your life, and you can either go further into the vices,
Yeah.
or you could find a positive outlet and channel, or someone to help you through that. And it sounds like you were able to do that.
Yeah. I was fortunate because it really gave me a path. And to be completely honest, I exchanged really at one point, one drug of choice for a different one, right? I got into steroids, and became a national level and then a professional bodybuilder. But during that period of time, also created a following for myself before there was social media. And that led me down a path of, opening up a supplement store. We had a private studio in the back, and then I outgrew that. So I opened up a full size gym and just really embraced that. Used the money that I got from my parents to open up that gym. And so it really started to mean something to me and to build a culture. And that was, I think, really the beginning of me understanding that how much culture matters, and how family doesn't just have to be blood, but it could be those people that you pull from all over the place around you.
That's beautiful. Because there's going to be people out there that don't have family that supports them or encourages them to go after the dream. Isn't it funny? You probably see that all the time where someone will tell you about their dream or their vision, and then someone's trying to shut the lid on that.
Oh my gosh, it happens all the time. Yeah, I mean, I think of it like, crabs in a bucket. It's the world is like that for the majority of the people out there. They're just trying to pull you back. And so you really have to sift through and find the right people that they want more. And that's part of our business as well, which is fortunate.
That's what we get to do. So what do you say to someone that's out there that doesn't have that support around them? Maybe they're trying to start some kind of business, whether it's in direct sales or multi-level marketing or a traditional business like a gym, like where you started at.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to someone that's facing that type of opposition?
I think it all comes down to vision. I think if you have a big enough vision, vision works in many different ways, but if you can have a big enough vision and you start to create clarity on that, you look at a basketball player or somebody in sports or, somebody that has a big dream in business, they're constantly circling that. They're so focused on that they start to feel. And there's something called your RAS, your reticular activating system. It's designed in your brain so that if you really start to focus on things, your brain pulls those things in and pays attention to those, and it shuts everything else out, right? And I think for those of you out there that are trying to start a business or whatever it is, or you just don't have a lot of support, you have to get hyper focused on what you want in life, and God and the powers to be in your brain they'll pull the right things into there for you to succeed, because your body and your brain is designed to prove yourself right. So if you're focused on what you truly want, it will push away the things that will try to prove you wrong, right? Where most of us do is, if we really look at our thoughts, we're focused on what we can't do. And because of that, then our brain shuts those things down. And so I think it's training your brain to understand what is that clarity. And then you think of like sprinters, like horses that are sprinters, right? They have their blinders on because they don't want to see to the side. They're so focused forward, they're focused on that finish line so that they run straight. And I think in life, what happens is we're too busy looking to the left and looking to the right. And then we don't get clarity on what we want.
Yeah. Do you find often, because you have the opportunity in your business to mentor people all the time.
Yeah.
So as you're helping them with their vision or getting this clarity on what they want, what kind of obstacles do you see people face as they're trying to do that?
I think most of them are, I think when it really comes down to it, it's the insecurities about themselves. If they can relay the message, because I'll take, in our business and Make Wellness, we've been doing this for, I think, 9 months now. We're one of the fastest growing companies out there in direct sales history. We're actually right now one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. And so the vehicle is already there, right? But that doesn't mean somebody's necessarily going to step into that and be successful, because we have so many doubts and we've been so used to in our life. It's funny because as a kid, what will happen is your parents will tell you you can do it. You can be anything you want, right? You can be an astronaut, or you can be a police officer, or you can be a basketball player. But then you get to a certain place and society starts to shut that stuff down and say, how dare you dream? And so I think the hardest, but also the most fulfilling part of our business and what we do is getting people to dream again, and then getting clarity on that dream. And so it's stepping in. They say fear is it's a mile wide, but it's really only an inch deep. And most of the things that we fear are made up in our head. They're not real. And so if we can start to get people just a little bit at a time to take a next step into something that's fearful, they start to realize, and it starts to pick up momentum, where all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I can accomplish anything. And that's the beautiful thing about this business is it teaches them that in the business, but it also teaches them in life because again, we are conditioned not to dream in this life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful part of this work. So since we're on the topic of Make Wellness and being one of the fastest growing companies
Mhm.
in the US right now, not just the fastest in direct sales, what is a common misunderstanding about the work that we get to do? Or some common misunderstandings.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, here's the good and the bad about this business. So we'll go down two different paths.
Or
The good and the bad about this business is that anybody can do it, right? So the good about it is you don't have to have a college. Um, you don't have to go to college in order to be successful in this. And in fact, one of my mentors who's done it at a higher level than anybody I've ever seen didn't go to college. But on the flip side of that, anybody can do it. And if you take a look at across the spectrum, it doesn't matter if you're talking again about a doctor or an athlete or somebody in business, whatever it is, 80% of the people are just not going to do the work in order to get to the place that they want. It's the whole persist until, most of us persist until it gets hard, right? But persist until, the key word is until you're successful. And so if we can condition them to be that 20% that is going to rise up and is going to consistently persist until they're successful, well, then you're going to have success. And so it's helping people to get past that. The norm is it's, even with our phones, how everything has conditioned us to have instant gratification. And so if we don't get that first person to sign up and we get a no, all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're a failure at this. This isn't going to work for us. But I love to use the analogy of a baseball player because I think baseball players have conditioned themselves as a little kid all the way up until the pros is if they're up to bat and they get 3 out of 10 hits, that's a Hall of Fame batting average, right? Only 3 out of 10. But like if somebody stepped into our business and they talked to 10 people and only got 3, usually what happens is they focus on the 7. And so what it is again, conditioning them to help them to understand that, hey, at the beginning, what you lack in skill, you make up in numbers. So if you're getting 1 out of 10 at first, that's okay. Let's focus on that 1 because that 1 said yes. And if we're in this to help people and not just to sell, then what happens is you focus on that person. That feels really good. It gets you hit a dopamine. And now you say, okay, how do I get 2 out of 10? How do I get 3 out of 10? And then all of a sudden you have that batting average of 3 plus, and you're off to the races. And so that's one of, I think that's one of the misconceptions about this business is people look at it as a lotto ticket. If they get lucky at the beginning, they'll stick and stay. And if not, then it's not worth it to them.
yeah, that's a great one. I love that you talked about baseball. I don't think I've ever talked about this on my podcast or even live videos. I know I've done it with leaders in the past, but one of the things about me that's an intrinsic motivation. So not an extrinsic, like a shout out or a dollar amount or a monthly bonus or any of those things. Is as a kid, I wanted to be a pro MLB player. So when you said baseball, it triggered that memory in my mind.
Gosh, yeah.
And like right now, the Little League World Series are going on, and I'm watching it while I'm at the gym. And I played in the Little League World Series. I was like, I'm going to be an MLB player.
Yeah.
And, I played in all the city leagues and all the tournaments and traveled, and so grateful for parents that took me to all those and sacrificed so much. And looking back, I know now how difficult that was for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful for that. But then finally, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to continue this path, I got to play high school ball because I played all these travel leagues. And I was like, I got to play high school, college, so I can get recruited. And I started 2 years later than all the others that had been playing like JV and varsity. And I tried out, I worked all winter long in the basement gym with the varsity when many of the people didn't, showed up to tryouts, crushed it. And I haven't told this story really, but when they put up the roster, who made the team, I walked downstairs into the gym and my name was on it. And I was like, next step, we're on our way,
Yeah.
And then they handed out the jerseys and mine wasn't there. And like I went into the coach's office right by the bottom of the stairs. I was like, hey, my jersey's not here. And he just looks at me, he's like, oh man, I don't know how your name got on that list.
Wow.
And I walked away and I never played baseball again.
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, I wish I wouldn't have. So when I'm working with my kids and all of those, I'm like, okay, like you might get rejected sometime, but don't stop. Don't stop when rejection happens. But for me, like when I started my first business, I was like, I don't care how hard this is gonna be. And I was 29 when I started. I was like, I'm no, it's like I created a new identity for myself.
Hmm.
I said, I'm not gonna be someone who quits when it gets hard. Like no
That's
matter how hard it gets in life, I'm gonna keep moving forward and do whatever it takes to learn and grow past
yeah,
that next step.
yeah, that's
And
good.
so I think you got to have kind of a mentality like that if you want to win in any business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't think there's any difference between this and other businesses. I think so. My second point was it's too easy to get into this type of business. There's no investment, right? So for the most part, in our first business in Advocare way back in 2007 when we started, you had to buy in for $3,000. As time has progressed, the buy-in is less and less and less to try to get in more people, right? And so what you have with that is, again, small investment. People aren't going to take it as serious, and so you either invest with money or you invest with sweat equity. And so you have to have really great systems that teach people to step into that and instantly start to build that candor of, okay, I'm going to work hard for what I want. And again, it comes back to what are their goals and do their goals match with their habits? The same thing in sports, and I think I was the same way. I was a super hard worker when I was young. I was the type that I I was lucky because I had a really great father. He wasn't into sports, but he was in the military. So I had that military type tough background, right? That had me working as a young boy. But then I was really lucky to have a couple of really tough coaches that they loved hard workers, and I loved to prove that I was the hardest worker. And so I remember actually stepping into my first high school basketball practice was a summer league. And so I'm in going into ninth grade, and then there's us, and we're practicing with all the way up to the seniors, and we had to run lines at the end of the end of the practice, and I beat everybody. And so the coach pulls me aside and then makes everybody run again while I clap for everybody. I'm this little 5'5", little 130
freshman.
pound guy, yeah, freshman. And but it made me realize, like, how do you earn respect? Respect is earned through those habits that you create, and it gets into your psyche of who you are and your identity. My identity was that I was going to outwork anybody in the room, and so I think as my parents died and I get into bodybuilding, the same thing. That went into bodybuilding, and because of that, I was not the best genetic gifted. I was not the most genetic gifted person, but I outworked people to get to a place where I was the best in the world. And then I gave that up and then stepped into direct sales, and we've done the same thing. So
I love that. So I have a question. Stepping into direct sales, let's talk about that.
yeah,
So you go into this place where you're year one, first year of business in direct sales. Talk to me about your first year of building
yeah.
a direct sales business. What
I
did
think
that
I'm. I think I'm actually probably a good story for those of you that don't believe in direct sales. So 2007, I was introduced to direct sales. So my future wife came into my gym as a personal trainer. She was a single mom of two at the time. She had a 2 and a 4 year old. She had just walked out of a very, very abusive relationship to the point where she was beat so bad she had blood coming out of her ears, and essentially packed up with one suitcase and her kids, went and lived with her mom, started her whole life over. And so she had something to prove. And so at the time, she was personal training and cocktail waitressing at night. And then she decided, hey, I'm going to start this direct sales company. I've seen people in the past that have been very successful. I know that I can do this. And so she came in and pitched it to me. And to be honest, at the beginning, I wanted nothing to do with it. Like I had too much ego. At that point, I was a national, about to be a professional bodybuilder, and just kind of pushed it away. And I watched her for a little while. I signed up. So I think there's two moments in direct sales. There's the point where you sign up, and then the point when you really decide you're going to start a real business. And so for me, it was all the way until 2010 that when I really started the business. So I carried products in my gym, but really didn't do the business. And it was the end of 2009. I had just turned pro. And this is, again, before social media. So So probably at that point, I'm in Florida, I'm competing, I'm getting thousands and thousands of texts. Like people are excited that I'm at that level and cheering me on. And I turn pro and I walk off the stage and I go to take a shower and I just start breaking down, bawling, crying. And it was kind of the end of that whole period of time was in my mind was designed to get me past my parents' death, but I really didn't do anything internal to grow through that process. And what I started seeing with my Jennifer, my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but what she was developing was a true family and a culture and things that of a nature of people that wanted to grow and wanted to pour into other people. And what I had seen in the fitness industry was a lot of people that they built themselves up from cutting other people down. And so I made a decision at that moment that even though I had a ton of fans and it felt really good to be at the top level, it wasn't, it was self-seeking versus going out there and building a culture. And so I called her up right after that and said, hey, I want to do this. And from that point forward, took off. I was making probably about $1,000 dabbling in it prior to that. And by the end of that year, I'm guessing on numbers, but I was probably in between somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 a month.
That's awesome. Now we're talking, you enrolled in 2007, fast forward to 2010. So 3 years, just kind of dabbling, making $1,000 a month. Now, some people might look at that in their life and think they've been doing the business as a professional and be like, I've only made $1,000 a month. And, it's just not for me, and could have stepped away completely.
100%.
But you had this moment where you wanted to be in collaboration, create this community,
Yeah.
go all in with it, actually building the business, and completely blessed your life. That's life-changing money, especially thinking back 2010 even.
Oh my gosh, it was. I remember there was an event that right when I hit that $15,000 mark, there was an event that we were at, and I just remember walking through that event and just looking around at all the people that obviously like are part of your team and following your lead and that type of thing. And just not being proud because of the money. The cool thing about this business is, on the outside, people might be thinking, well, you're bragging about money. And to be honest, the way that I grew up in that environment of, my dad being in the military and stuff, we never talked about money. So when I first got into direct sales, it actually turned me off. But when I realized that money is really a mirror of how many people you're helping, then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, that's the measurement. And so now that's showing, what you're actually doing as far as making change in people's lives. And what I love about this business, is really threefold. On the superficial, I guess we'll call it that, you're helping people with their health and you're helping people with their finances. To me, what that does is it allows me to get to know those people and step into their lives and understand what they're dealing with and really get to minister to them. And that's one of the beautiful things about, you talked about earlier, you can be a victim, could have been a victim of my parents' death. But actually what it did is it gave me a gift that anytime anybody is dealing with death or sickness or any of those types of things, I instantly can relate to those people. And so I can instantly put my arm around those people and say, hey, I know how you're feeling at some level. And so, let me share with you how I dealt with this, or let me ask you some questions and let's talk about this and just understand it from their perspective. And so that's again, the amazing thing about this business is it's a people business. And if you learn how to minister to people and to make it about them and their needs, and you're just connecting them to a solution, it takes on a whole different meaning than being a salesperson that people might see on the outside that's just knocking on people's doors trying to get them to buy something.
Yeah. When we were at the Make Launch event, one of my good friends, Jared and I were on, or Jared and I were on the dance floor at the closing, and Justin Prince said something very similar along that line. He's like, this is the place where I can best minister to my fellow mankind.
Yeah.
In this business. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It was actually a really cool moment in my life. So my story, so at 2010, you might know him or might not, but Matt Hasselbeck used to be the quarterback for the Seahawks. The NFL was going through a lockout at the time. And so a lot of the Seahawks ended up coming into my gym to work out. And he had been hurt a couple years in a row. And so he had, I believe that the year before had cracked ribs, and he was starting to take a pounding as he was getting older. And so some of his teammates brought him to me and said, "Hey, we've got to get him in tip top shape for this year so that we can really take it to the next level." And so I got to know him. Well, he invited me to church, and I grew up as an altar boy, but never knew. I could recite everything, but I never knew the meaning behind everything. And so he had brought me to church, and it kind of caught my attention. But then when I started joining the direct sales industry, there was a lot of coaches, a lot of teachers, and a lot of pastors. And so a lot of them started really ministering to me as I was, getting to know them, and really started pouring into me. And so I started seeking going to a church. And so for about a year, all by myself, I would go to a church. I'm not the dancing type. So when you're saying you're out on the dancing floor, like I'm pretty shy. And so I would show up about 15 minutes, late, so that I missed all the singing and I didn't have to stand up and do all those things. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I would take notes, and then as soon as they started singing again, I would leave, and I would drop $100 bill into the the little donation thing. And that was for that year. It was really my ability to grow. Well, then I found a church, and I wanted to be a part of it. And because of my direct sales background, they actually asked me to start to help them to bring people in, because I was so good at building relationships and that type of thing. And so I got into the inner circle of the church and of the leaders in the church, and really started just understanding faith at a deeper level, and walking through the prayers, and just understanding the Bible and studying it. And so during COVID, we were up in the Seattle area, and they shut down all the churches. They shut down everything up there. And so our church ended up kind of breaking up. And I remember sitting there for probably about, 3 or 4 weeks, and just really praying on it and saying, "Hey, am I supposed to be a part of another church?" And we helped this church from the very beginning start. Like when I first walked in there, the pastor, he came from Texas up to there to start a church. He would be playing on the drums. He'd wipe his brow. He'd get up. He would do the announcements. He'd go sit down for a minute, and then he'd come up and then start the sermon. And so after being there for about a year and a half, and being a consumer, I was like, in what I do, I have to start to challenge myself. And so I said, I think I want to help you guys. Can I get up there and I do the announcements? It'll help me to public speak. I'm super nervous being up in front of people. This will get me out of my comfort zone, and just give me a bigger piece in this whole thing. And so I'm not just a consumer, but I start to become a producer in this environment. And so we had grown this church together, and I felt like I was a big part of it. Well, when COVID happened and it went away, again, I'm praying, and finally it was like God talked to me audibly. He's like, "I've already given you your platform to minister to people." And I started realizing and looking at this business differently. I'm like, okay, if I can help people and I can earn their trust again through health or finances, well, then I have the ability to really get to know them outside of when people walk into a church. If you don't really know them, you ask them, "How was your week?" And they could be crushed. They could be going through a divorce, and they're like, "Good, good." And then they do their thing, and then they leave, right? And you don't build the relationships. It's a lot harder. And I'm like, man, God has put this platform in front of me to really get to know people. And I can do the same thing here that I was doing at church, and I don't have to force things on people, but I get to show them the fruits of why we are who we are. And so it's been really beautiful.
I love that. It's kind of cool to hear that you're naturally shy. I knew that from getting to know you over the past 9 months or so as well. But I'm naturally introverted and shy also. So it's been a great
I
place
would never guess it from you.
for me. Yeah, it's been a great place for me to grow and to expand just who I am as a human. And that's what we're here on
Mm.
Earth for,
Yeah.
is to grow ourselves and our gifts and our talents. And you can do that in any career if you really dive into it and explore your options. But here in this type of work, there's just so many different things that we do that all have to do with other humans that are here experiencing life with us,
Mhm.
that we get to be a friend, a mentor, counselor, all of the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I was just thinking of like flashing through my mind just different relationships over the past 15 years. I almost got lost. So it's been beautiful.
Oh, it has.
So, so you've talked about some of the beautiful things about the work that you get to do ministering to your fellow being. Doesn't it all sound like, as some might say, an icky thing? Some people have this taste in their mouth of an MLM or direct sales being icky.
Yeah.
So, why do you think that is? Why do you think some people have that conception? Maybe someone's like, I believe in peptides. I'm a gym
Mhm.
owner. I'm a personal trainer. I'd like to do that, but
Yeah.
I've had a bad experience and
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah, I know exactly why. It's because the old school direct sales model is a self-consumption model. So I want you to think about this. And our first business from 2007 that I signed up till 2019 was a self-consumption model. We were growing up. I guess grew up in that environment, so we didn't know the difference. But once I got out of it, I realized what people were talking about. And so think of it this way: if a company brings you in as a customer, could be any company, but a company that has a good product, but a distributor brings you in as a customer. But then the whole goal is somehow to go from a customer to a distributor. In our first business, they called it a Costco membership. They would say, "Hey, you only have to buy in for, I don't remember what it was, $25 or $50 or something like this, and you get a 20% discount." And it's like a Costco membership, right? And then once they were in that, so now they went from a customer, really what they wanted to be, just using the products, to a 20% discount. But then our whole demeanor was, "Hey, you're at 20%, but you could get to 40% if you introduce us to some of your friends." Right? So now you're forcing somebody that just wanted to buy a product, you're forcing them to put themselves out there without any training to their friends and say, "Hey, do you want to buy this product that they're not interested in?" And that creates that ick feeling, right? And so the reason when we shifted out of our first company over to a company called Modere, the reason we actually bought into it was because it was a customer to customer acquisition. So what they actually taught was, when in normal direct sales, it's a 1-to-1 ratio because most of the customers end up over at the distributor side and again get that ick feeling. But in a customer acquisition, it's more about treating the customers like a customer. And then the people that want to do the business because they believe in the system and they want to help people, then it's a whole different onboarding system. Right. And so you have different conversations. If you're my business partner, I'm having a different conversation with you than somebody that just wants to use the product. And so that's where what I love about Make Wellness is, when Justin Prince came up with this, he's very forward thinking. So he actually helped Modere to come up with the first customer to customer acquisitions back in, I don't know when it was, probably 11 years ago, before there was any the give get systems, before that was in direct sales. But he came, when he was putting this together, he said, what right now is very popular and what's socially acceptable? It's affiliate marketing. And so he created two sides of our plan. One is affiliate marketing. If you want to sell to customers, right, you treat them as customers and you don't have to do anything about building the business either. So it doesn't even put pressure on that affiliate. And they can make up to 40%. That's more than anybody in the industry anyway. But if you want to duplicate yourself and you want to build culture, then we have another side and we'll treat them differently as well. And so it's all how it's set up. A lot of these companies, because they're so old and they've created a system that used to work and they're not willing to change with the times, they're going to have that feeling. And so it's really understanding the vehicle in which is operating. And I personally, I love to ask people that have that ick feeling, tell me a little bit about your experience, because when I start to hear it, then it's very easy to say, "Oh, guess what? We don't do that here. So this is how we're going to treat you, and this is what you're going to get from this." And because of that very thing, actually, we have hundreds and hundreds of doctors that are actually now utilizing our products within their four walls as well, because it does not feel like direct sales.
That's awesome. So you have a different I mean, obviously anybody can join this business. I'm not a doctor or a gym owner, but you have a different atmosphere of people who are coming into this business
Yeah.
that probably wouldn't have done that before. So I got a question about that. So maybe there's someone on here. two different people I'm thinking about right now,
Mhm.
either a doctor or a personal trainer or a professional bodybuilder. Is like,
Mhm.
because my experience, so I was formerly with Beachbody, so we did home workouts, pre-workout and stuff. So bodybuilders, personal trainers, it was like, why would I sell your program when I have my own thing? Or I
Yeah.
went to school for this, or I'm certified in this. And so
Yeah.
it's really hard, it's very rare
Yeah.
to have those people in our business model. Why is what we're doing here at Make Wellness make sense? Why does that make sense for them?
Well, let's start with the doctors. When we first started this business, just because of the position that I'm in, I actually went to corporate and said, "Hey, I want to make sure that we create a system that is very organic for the doctor, so that you know everybody, every doctor's office and business for that matter that sells some sort of product, they all operate a little bit differently. And so I said, could we come up with a couple different options? Number one, so that however they operate, it feels organic to them. And what I love about our corporate staff is they're very high level thinkers that have been very good in the industry and other companies. Like we have Truman Hunt. He took New Skin from 700 million to 3.2 billion. We have Tyler Whitehead that he was the CEO for Arbonne and ended up stepping down from there. He's at the very top position over there. He ends up stepping down from there to come over here and, I wouldn't say take a lesser than position, but take a position where he's not the CEO because of what we're doing and the fact that we want to do things differently so that it feels differently in the culture. And so anyway, we created these systems that allow doctors to do it the way that it feels organic to them. And so I think number one, if you have a good product, and because we're really at the right, we honestly it's not luck, but there's a little bit of luck to it. Like we're in the right moment to be doing peptides, right? And we're the first to the conversation, or the first big voice to the conversation of natural peptides that are actually working. And we've also joined forces with a company that spent 10 years and 150 million in AI and peptide research that decided they're going to work with us. And so that all of those things kind of add up and kind of help for us to be very successful right now. Okay, so on the doctor side, they have a good product that they want to use and can run alongside of some of the things they're already doing. But then on the trainer side, here's the thing, and coming from being a professional bodybuilder, owning a gym, being a personal trainer, being a nutritionist, there's a lot of ego that comes with that. Just to be completely honest, I had ego. You're helping a lot of people. You have your own system. You have your own way of doing things. You've tried the products that work, and so sometimes it's hard to break into that, that lane, if you will. And so if somebody is listening that is a trainer or a professional bodybuilder or that kind of thing, I totally get it, And so I just want to say that that's a hard area to break into for the average person to go sell somebody like that, because they know a lot more than the person probably that's trying to sell them on the products. And so that's the first thing. But the second thing is, what I found from this business, when I finally decided to utilize the products and create systems that could duplicate. So I would create nutritional programs and workouts, and instead of charging people, I would give them for free if they were taking the products. Well, guess what? When they got results, most of their friends wanted to know what they're doing. And if they could pass that on, and then they could create either income or credits or something like that, and they're doing it voluntarily because people want to know what they're doing, and then that comes back to me and I make money from that. That is something that, as a trainer, nutritionist, gym owner, you run out of time. It's time for dollars, and you can only leverage your own time so much. And so what it does, if somebody's out there listening, it gives you the ability to duplicate yourself at a very high level. And in fact, I had, in our very first business, when I had the gym and then we were building that Avocare business, I had 4 legs that came out of our gym. One was a personal trainer that ended up moving to LA, and she became an influencer at the very beginning of becoming an influencer. One trainer connected us to one of her best friends in Indiana, and that became our second biggest leg. One was our sales our sales girl, and she ended up moving back home to Philadelphia. That became our biggest leg. Like, and then there was one other one that connected us to somebody up in Alaska that became our fourth biggest leg. All of those became veins of income that were coming in because we used a system and because they could duplicate. And so again, it is what it is. Like sometimes it's hard to break into the gyms and the trainers and that type of thing. But if they start to see the potential of this and they like the products, there's no better system out there to make a lot of money and help a lot of people.
Awesome. Help a lot of people and make good income doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing this. Like, what was your biggest month ever in direct sales? You don't need to say what company or what year, because
Yeah.
people need to know the potential. Because I mean, there are people out there like they hear something and they're like, okay, I'm willing to put in the work for something like that.
Yeah. So let me start here by saying this. So in our first company, the highest, because we came in and we worked from 2000, like I said, 2007, if you want to count that, to 2019. Our biggest check in that was, I think, 102,000. And the highest earner in that company was 320,000. And so that was my ceiling. And so when we moved into the next company, which was an anti-aging company and had a whole different, you remember I told you the other one was a self-consumption model. It was actually really hard to build. When we moved into the next company and it was a customer to customer acquisition, we almost ended up doubling. I think our biggest month was just over 150. I think it was 155.
Okay.
And then moving into our next one, the biggest so far has been right around 250,000
And that's in a month.
in a month. Yeah. And so it's been a blessing. That's not the ceiling though. My one of my mentors has made as much as 1.4 million in a month. And so again, what I always look at is what is possible and how many people do you have to influence and help in order to do that, right? When I say influence, I'm saying how many people can you help to believe in themselves where they can go out there and they can build a business that's going to give them life freedoms. And then help obviously is on the health side and how many people can you get products in their mouth?
Awesome. I love the saying. I think it's Ed Milet that says, you like have a dream so big that other people's dreams fit inside of that dream.
Yeah.
My vision for the next 5 years is I want to help as a team help 1 million people feel better with natural peptides
Love that.
and good habits. I want to develop and mentor 10 families into 7-figure annual earners and 100 families that are earning 6 figures.
Yeah,
So
dude.
as I'm out there like working, it's not like, can I sell this person some peptides?
Yeah.
Like obviously I know if I can understand their goals, they want more energy or they want to build more lean muscle, I can make that connection. But as I wake up, if I'm tired or the kids kept me up, I'm like, I'm working towards that mission,
Mhm.
having that drive.
Dude, I love forcing yourself to create a mission and a vision. Mission is to me is, and I think everybody has their own definitions of what these are, but for
Yeah.
me, mission is who you are, like the root of who you are, and I think vision is what do you want to accomplish, and I like to give it a timestamp. So I did this practice where I felt a little bit lost, like I felt like we were running our business really well, but I didn't know my place in the world at that point. And so I sat down and I started creating a mission, and my mission was it's creating connections that empower people to live a good life. And so I have it broken down into 3 categories. And really what I did is I went through a couple different, are you familiar with strength finders?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took strength finders, I took gems, just a couple of different tests that allowed me to understand a little bit of who I was and how I was wired. And in strength finders, my top 5, my number one's learner. So I'm always good when I'm learning because I'm really good then at teaching other people what I learn, right? And so that keeps me moving and keeps me fresh. My number 2 though is connector. And so when I was building my mission, creating connections for me, like I said before, I'm kind of quiet. I don't need to be out in front. I don't need to be in the spotlight. In fact, I don't like to be on stage. Sometimes I have to just because of the position we're in, but if I can create connections, whether that's connections to another person, that's connections to a mindset, or whatever it is, I feel like I'm winning as long as I'm helping that person to empower themselves, right? So many times what happens, I think, in leadership is you get into this place, and I don't think we do it on purpose, but we're so used to leading that we always have to be out in front. And then it almost becomes our identity where if we're not out in front and not in the spotlight, then we feel lesser than. And so I want to keep reminding myself that my goal is to create connections that empower others, not empower myself. Right. And then for people to live a good life, for me, I wanted to put something on there that was generalized enough but specific. Like for you, I could ask you, what is a good life to you? Right. And you can tell me what's a good life to you, but I don't want to put that definition out there. So good to me means something that somebody else can define, and then I can help empower them by connecting them to the right people. And so that's the mission. And it took me a while. It took me a couple months talking through it with pastors and leaders and others to really like hone that in. But once I had it, I can keep reflecting back and saying, am I doing this? Or if my life feels like it's going, in a direction that I don't like, I'm like, can I get back to that? And it realigns me. And then just like you talked about, my vision, for me, I wrote this down in 2020, and it was to help 20 business partners make $100K a month. Because again, in our business, it's a reflection of how many people you help, right? And so if I could help them do that, well, it was interesting because after COVID, our business started taking a dive. So I wrote that in 2020 before all the COVID stuff went down. And, after COVID and our business, and then I wasn't liking where our previous business, where the culture was. And so I was thinking about stepping away from it. And I have it up on my board in my office, and I have it written up there. And I thought for a minute about racing it. And I was like, I don't think we're going to be in this vehicle anymore. And I just don't know where my life's leading me. I think I'm going to race this and reassess. And something in me just said, don't do it. Like, you made that commitment to yourself. And I put a timestamp, 2027. So the clock's ticking, right? But then we took a chance, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but a year ago, we stepped away from our direct sales business that we were doing. We were still making 7 figures and doing really well, but I didn't feel like we aligned with the culture anymore. And I took a chance to help to start this company up that we're in now. And the company's absolutely blown up, right? And so we're back on track and actually ahead of where I thought it was going to be. And so it shows the power of writing things down. It's one thing to think something, but they say you're 40% more likely to accomplish it if you write it down. You're 70% more likely if you write it down and you circle it and you talk about it. So circling it means you get clarity, right? It goes back to that vision. If you're so clear on the vision, you're not worrying about what's going on or even the obstacles that are right in front of you, because you can see past that. And you can see that this is actually designed to make you stronger versus to make you turn around. And so I love the mission vision thing, because I feel like it's something you can constantly reflect on, constantly challenge yourself. And that keeps me going.
Man, I felt like you felt there of like, should I, not with this specific one, but prior to transitioning over and building with Make Wellness,
Yeah.
I was at a place where I was like, I was confused. I was like, but I've been writing out this vision and this mission. The mission statement was clear, and I get what you're saying, and I hope the audience caught the difference between mission and vision as well. But I was at a point too where I was like, do I need to change this up? Because I don't see the possibility anymore. I couldn't see how that was going to be possible. So I love that you touched on that. My mission, outside, I shared what my vision over the next 5 years of building this company is. So let me be one of those 20. I'm willing to put in the work. So,
I would
and the
love it.
numbers I have for myself align with that by 2027. So
Perfect, dude.
my mission is to remind people that your family is your most important work on earth,
Mm-hmm.
help people feel better, and help more families earn income help families earn more income for their families.
I love it.
So those are my 3 things. So I love that you touched base on that. I have a question. Just thinking about you're mentoring people, high-level leaders, people that are starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
What do you say to the person that maybe has started, they got some initial success,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe some of their customers canceled, or they had someone that they thought was going to build with them
Mhm.
disappears off the face of the planet and they start to feel discouraged. What do you say to that person?
Persistence. We hit on it a little bit, earlier, but here's what I believe is, I believe, especially in this business, but in life, it comes in waves, right? Like just like the ocean comes in and it goes back out, comes in, goes back out. It's like when a high tide starts to come in, you don't recognize it all at once, but it starts to happen. It starts to rise up, right? And so you see these patterns, and our business is very much like that. Like you're going to hit a high and then it goes back a little bit, and you're going to hit a high and it goes back a little bit, because again, when you come back to just the ratios of who's willing to do the work, 80% of the people that you come across are not going to be willing to do the work to get to that place where they are above average. And so just understanding that, and that's where you tap back into your vision and say, okay, where am I going? And I'm very visual. I think of myself as I'm on a train and I'm heading towards my vision. And you can get on this train if you want to. And if you don't, totally okay. Okay. And that's why I think one of the things that I really try to teach my team, I call it relaxed intensity. I'm going to be who I am regardless. And that's tough sometimes. Like I've had high level leaders that didn't believe in who I was. And I had to keep being me until they saw through it. Right. And so sometimes you're going to feel like you're not getting traction, or you're going to feel like the work that you're doing is not being seen. But if you can continue, again, the relaxed intensity, I'm going to continue no matter what. And even if you say no to me, I'm going to challenge myself to keep treating you the same way. I'm going to treat you like you are a part of the family. I'm going to treat you like you said yes, because a lot of people, they operate. If you say yes, I'm your best friend. But if you say no, I'm not, I'm really never giving you the time of day. And so that's, again, the ministry part in me, where it's like, could I love you for who you are, regardless of what you're doing for me? That's, if you make it about people and you make it about the relationship, I think eventually what happens, and what I've seen is a lot of people, it might be life timing. It might be that they have scar tissue. It might be all kinds of reasons why they say no or not right now. But a lot of, and this is both on the product and on the business side, right? Like sometimes people have so much scar tissue from trying to lose weight, and they've tried all kinds of different things, and they have self-doubts. And even when they lose, their identity still says they're heavy. And so their habits start to form back to the way that they were, to prove that that's who they are, And so if you can continue to lead by example and be the person, eventually you're going to look back and those people will want to follow you. And they're going to look for the fruit in the life that you have. And so my job is always, how do I lead that way? And how do I continue to be who I am? And the right people will follow.
Clip that one. I like that. That was powerful. We're about to wrap up here, but I'm thinking about, we've talked about a lot of the success. You've talked about some hardships in your life.
Mhm.
Does life, and as a father, a husband, a business owner, a large team, does it ever overwhelm you? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think we all have emotions that rise and fall. So absolutely. But uh, I try to create patterns. And so I cut too high of emotion or too low emotions off. So I don't allow myself. If you think of the thermostat, we've all probably heard this, right? The thermostat versus the thermometer. Like one is determined on the outside environment. The other one is setting the tone, right? And so what I lean on a lot is habits and patterns. And so what I try to do is I try to create certain things in my life that bring me back to constantly growing, constantly moving forward, and constantly assessing, and constantly being thankful. So for instance, my daily pattern, I get up in the morning, I take a shower. In the shower, I always reflect back on the day before. So I reflect back on conversations. I reflect back on relationships. I reflect back on if somebody said yes or no to me, like all those things, and say, okay, could I give myself a little bit a pat on the back for the things that went right, because you want to celebrate, but also like, what could I change there? How could I get better? And so I'm always assessing those things. And then again, I think the more that you can create a consistency in your life, and you get back to those things, it keeps you from getting in the lows. because I think the lows are when you separate from where you want to go, and then also the people that you want to be around. If you look at anybody that's deep into a depression or that type of thing, they've isolated themselves, whether that's isolated from people or isolated from their thoughts, isolated from their goals. And so I think, again, if you can create those patterns keep you healthy.
Awesome. So those of you out there listening, find good mentors to be around, good people to be around, community, like Nate's talked about a lot today, and create patterns and habits in your life that contribute to and highlight the direction that you want to go. I've always heard you can't just stay still in life. You're either going forward or you're going backwards.
Yep.
And it seems very much easy. Naturally, we slip backwards without any effort.
Yep.
And so it takes effort to create those habits and those patterns. Nate, I want to end it out with one of my favorite questions. How do you want because you have some 20-year-old kids, how do you want your future grandkids and great grandkids, what do you want them to remember about you when you're no longer with us?
Yeah. That I was present. I think that's one of the most important things. I think it's very hard in a distracting and driven world. Like this world congratulates you for being busy, right? It doesn't matter if you're actually getting somewhere. It's more about like being busy. And then also there's constant distractions. And so I think one of the most important things for me is being present. And then I think the other thing is that if somebody explained me after I died and said, hey, he was somebody that I always felt loved. When I was around him, I felt loved. I felt secure. I felt, like I could trust him. Like those things, those emotions are very important to me, that I create those emotions and that emotional attachment when I'm around people.
That's a beautiful legacy to be able to leave something like that. I was thinking about that the other day. Well, I started adding it into my journal. I don't know when it was, maybe like a month ago when I write my daily vision and my goals and
yeah, you are good at that.
Reflect on a positive thing that happened yesterday, like something I'm grateful for. I added into it that I live a slow paced and present life with my future grandkids and
that's good.
And I was like, because I'm someone that's like, I'm like a time ninja. My wife will tell you, like, I'm like, okay, it takes 11 minutes to get to school. The thing is that this time we got to leave in 2.5 minutes. And I'm like yelling through the house, like, we got to get in the car now. And I'll be like, I'll be out in front. Like, get out, going on the Alexa app on my phone. I'm leaving.
Oh my gosh.
A little bit like, it's good to be on time to things, but I want to be someone that's slow paced and really enjoys life more. Like I find opportunities to do that, like taking my son camping and unplugging last week for his birthday, but on a daily basis, I want to live like that.
Yeah, that's good, man.
So thank you, Nate. This has been an absolutely
be on here.
Awesome conversation. Like I learned a lot from you, and I'm excited for our friends and our future friends to get to know you and who you are and how they can experience life at a different level here with us.
Love you, brother.
All right, love you, bro. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation we shared with you today. We are here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, help you feel better, and learn how to earn more income for your family. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review, clip what you like, or share it with a friend. My friend, it's time to level up.